Hi, I'm Mr. Steve, and I want to tell you a story. Today's book that we're going to read is called Let's Go Fishing, Gus. It was written by a woman named Jacqueline Williams and illustrated by Doug Cushman. And the people that printed it, which is very important because if they didn't print it, you may not be reading it. It's from a company called Picture Window Books, and they write a lot of things like this. And on the back, they tell you a little bit about what the book's about. You can find that on a lot of books. You know, if you want to see if it's something you'd be interested in reading, you can go in the back of the book, like here, and you can read what it's about. It's called a summary. And on the back of this one, it says, Gus doesn't know very much about fishing. Good thing Grandpa is along to teach him. Ride along in the boat with Gus and Grandpa as they catch all kinds of things, except fish. So here we go. Let's go fishing, Gus. The doorbell rang, and Gus ran to answer it. Says, "Are you ready to go fishing?" said Grandpa. "You bet," said Gus. And of course, that's Gus, and that's Grandpa. He's got his fishing hat on, and he's got his fishing jacket on, and all his fishing gear, and he is ready to go. Okay. Well, Gus's mom gave both of them a big hug goodbye and told Gus to be good. "I will," said Gus. "Get the frying pan ready," he added. "Grandpa and I are going to catch 1,000,000 fish today." So there they are. They got their canoe and they brought it down to the lake and they carried it down to the water. "Before we go, though, we need to check our tackle," said Grandpa. "Well, what's tackle?" asked Gus. "Well, those are things such as fishing poles and fishing lines and hooks and baits are tackle," said Grandpa. Well, Gus looked worried. See, there's Grandpa, and that little box he has right there is where all his fishing tackle is. He has all the different kinds of hooks, and they're called lures sometimes. And he's got the fishing line, and he's got everything he needs there to go fishing, along with his fishing pole. But Gus was kind of worried because he said he didn't have anything. Grandpa said, "Did you pack your fishing pole, your fishing line, your hook, and your bait?" Gus shook his head. He said, "Well, what did you bring?" And he held up his knapsack and said, "Well, I brought all sorts of other good stuff." Well, Grandpa said that he could take care of him, and he gave him all the tackle that he needed to go on the trip. So Gus and Grandpa climbed into the canoe and shoved off. At first, the canoe kept going around in circles. "We have to row together in the same direction," said Grandpa, "or we'll get dizzy." You know, that happens a lot of times even in life. You know, you can be working really, really hard on something, but if other people aren't working in the same direction you are, you could just be going around in circles. Well, that's what they were doing until they got together and they started rowing together in the same direction. This time, the canoe moved in a straight line right to the middle of the lake. And you know, that's where the best fish are out in the middle of the lake, because you've got a lot of seaweed down there and a lot of plants and a lot of good things for the fish to eat and a good place for them to hide. So they like the middle of the lake and they like the deep water. So Grandpa thought so too. He said, "This looks like a good spot for fish," he said, dropping his line in the water. "When will the fish start biting?" asked Gus. And Grandpa said, soon, soon. See, that's one thing about fishing. You have to be patient. You have to sit and you have to be really still because fish are smart. If you move around up in the boat, it'll make noise and it'll scare the fish away. So you have to be very quiet. You have to sit in one place and just wait and the fish will come. After a couple minutes, Gus sighed. He says, why aren't the fish biting yet? Because he was kind of impatient. He says, they will, said Grandpa. We just need to wait. Well, maybe they don't know we're waiting, asked Gus. Well, you're right, Grandpa said. Maybe they need a song. So Grandpa started to sing and Gus joined in. Catfish, oh catfish, please come here with me. You'll make a fine supper, swim around my tummy. Well, after a while, Grandpa and Gus stopped singing. They waited and waited and waited. And neither one of them even got a nibble. And there they are. But look what's going on with Gus. It looks like his pole is bending. Maybe he caught something. Well, the sun was starting to set and it was time to go home. Gus started to pull in his line, but something on the other end pulled back. You got a fish, Gus, yelled Grandpa. Gus pulled and pulled. It's the biggest fish ever, yelled Grandpa. Keep pulling. Gus pulled on his line as hard as he could. You got it, exclaimed Grandpa. You got a great, big, black boot. He pulled up a boot with his hook. And, that happens a lot if people aren't respectful and take care of nature. They just throw things out of a boat. And sometimes they wash off the shore, but they get into the lake and they settle on the bottom of the lake. And you may catch it on a fishing line or, it may damage the lake. So when you're out around the lake or out in nature, you always want to be respectful. And if you take something in, you take it out with you. Well, in this case, Gus did his part to help clean up. He caught a boot. Well, Gus stood up for a closer look. He said, "Don't stand up in the," Grandpa yelled, but it was too late. The canoe tipped and splish, splash. Gus and Grandpa tumbled into the lake. As the canoe bobbled upside down, the soggy fisherman swam to shore. "Oh, look at the canoe." "Don't worry, I'll get it," said Grandpa. I bet you Grandpa has had to go get a canoe a time or two out of the lake. That's going to happen sometimes when you're fishing. Sometimes it tips over and you can't do anything about it. Well, Grandpa cast out his fishing line. Zing! The line flew across the water. Twang! The hook snagged the canoe and Grandpa pulled the line tight. "Great catch," said Gus. That was the biggest thing that Grandpa caught all day. Well, Grandpa and Gus dragged the canoe out of the lake, loaded it onto the truck, and headed for home. "Sorry we didn't catch any fish, Gus," said Grandpa. "But we had a good time, didn't we?" "We sure did," said Gus. Grandpa honked the horn as he and Gus pulled into the driveway. Gus's mom came out to meet them. And there's Gus's mom right there. "Well, how was the fishing trip?" she asked. "It was great," said Gus. Then he sniffed and snuffled. "We made a fishing pole. We sang to the fish. I caught a boot, and Grandpa caught the canoe. Achoo! Achoo!" "It sounds like you caught a cold, too," says Mama. "But did you two catch any fish?" "No," said Gus, But it doesn't matter. It was the best fishing trip ever. That's the end. You know, sometimes if you go fishing, you may not catch any fish, but just being with people you love and spending time with them, that can be the whole best part of the fishing trip. This is Mr. Steve, and I will be coming back to you later with another story.